Hi Tarot Trainees, we are now on the ninth lesson in the Trainee Tarot course, and in this lesson, which is actually just a little bit more of a ramble, I'm going to give you some advice and some ideas on how to read tarot for yourself and for other people, because we are getting to that stage in the course now where you're probably itching to break out your deck for real and to do something that's really going to benefit yourself and other people, if indeed you have been learning tarot alongside this series. If you're watching it for other reasons, then you'll already know the joys of putting tarot into practice to help you and other people in your actual lives, and not just kind of practicing with fictional characters and all the kind of thing we've talked about doing before. So I'm going to talk about a few ideas that I have to help you kind of respond to tarot and approach the tool of tarot in a healthy context when reading for yourself. Tarot is supposed to be challenging. It is supposed to expand your horizons, help you to examine your options, help you think about things in a different way. That is the healthiest way to approach tarot, as an exploratory tool to help you find empowerment on your own terms and to help you move forward in a direction that you've chosen for yourself. So tarot is supposed to always make you feel like an active participant and never like a passive observer. That is my personal opinion. That's the way I see it. And that's the way I feel that the tool of tarot is utilised most fully. So I do think that, tarot is not pie in the sky, airy fairy stuff where everybody is told what they want to hear and everybody kind of gets the charming prince at the end of the story. It's actually supposed to be more of a path working tool, or more of a tool for exploration and kind of finding your way through a labyrinth if there's any confusion, or trying to decide on a pathway to go down if you're at a crossroads in your life. It can be very comforting and offer a great deal of guidance and encouragement during times of crisis, but it can also challenge the querent. So if you're reading for yourself, you need to kind of put that same role on tarot as you would if you were doing tarot for somebody else. Allow tarot to challenge you. Don't ask tarot to come forth with the messages that you want to hear and the answers that you would like to see, because I think it's very easy with tarot. It's such a kind of, I want to say subjective, but do I mean objective? It's very personal. A lot of the cards, although they deal with certain themes and certain energies, are kind of quite all encompassing. They can make sense in many different kinds of spread, and they do kind of have different faces. They're very multifaceted, the cards. As I said in a former video in this series, it's a lot more like art than it is like maths. If there was just one answer for every card, one message that it had attached to it, a lot less people would be reading tarot. Tarot is, in a sense, a very creative tool which asks you to use your own intuition and your own mind when you're reading for yourself or other people. So I think it's very easy for somebody who's reading the cards for themselves to project the answers that they want into the cards and to decide to kind of twist the messages so that everything comes up roses and everything comes up the way they want it to be. And that's very difficult to kind of let go of. And there are a great deal of readers who are very proficient at tarot who choose not to read tarot for themselves because they feel that they will be too close to the situation, that they won't be able to get enough out of it, that they will be pushing their own feelings and their own mindset onto the cards and kind of moulding the messages accordingly, instead of really being open-minded enough to take the true messages of tarot on board, or to allow themselves to look at the situation in a different way. They kind of worry that instead they will just project their reality onto the cards and they won't really get anything out of it. And then it kind of becomes based on ego or based on fear, and it's not really the helpful exploratory spiritual tool that we would have it be when we start to kind of push that reality onto it. So this might be something that you're deciding upon now. You might be deciding that you are too close to certain situations to use tarot to kind of help you find your way through them, and that's absolutely fine. Other tarot readers do use tarot for their own mental exploration, self-counselling, kind of guiding themselves, decision-making, brainstorming, all that kind of thing, getting inspired to think in a new way. And I think that if you can look at tarot as a tool for self-empowerment and for allowing you to feel proactive in your own life and get your own sense of what you want to do and enable you to live authentically, if you can see tarot, as that kind of tool, then you will be able to use it to help yourself, and it will be something that is very beneficial to you. It is very useful for exploring your options. It's very useful for meditation and for affirmations. It's also useful in spirituality. You can use tarot cards in the circle. You can use tarot cards to mark out the four corners, to commune with deity or spirit, to help you decide on your goals, your spiritual goals, and to help you feel empowered in that sense. Tarot is also very great for things like some of the main principles behind Gestalt therapy. So, for example, challenging yourself to think from somebody else's perspective, putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. Tarot, I think, is very good for personal conflict resolution. If you're having a problem with somebody or a conflict with somebody, and you really feel that there's a stalemate there, that you can't see their point of view and they can't see yours, tarot is a great way to kind of get yourself thinking from the other person's perspective and allow you to be less judgmental and more kind of involved with reaching a consensus, more desirous of a consensus and of a resolution. Sorry. So, you know, I think that's a very important thing about tarot, is just, if you're reading it for yourself, read it in a way that enables you to feel challenged, even if it makes you feel slightly uncomfortable, even if you'd rather kind of ignore the messages that are coming up and decide to mold the cards into the messages that you want. I think it's always really good to try and be as expansive as possible. But if you really do feel that you can't read your tarot cards for yourself, you're not that kind of reader, and that's absolutely fine. You can just go ahead and use tarot for other things, either for brainstorming and creative ideas, like with the bardic technique, which I'll teach in another video at some point, or just purely to enjoy the feeling of having that skill, and that's fine. I do also think that there comes a point where there can be too much tarot, and this is something that I've written about on the blog. When you're reading tarot for yourself and it becomes something that you become actively involved in, maybe you start with daily draws and then you start doing longer readings for specific situations that arise, I do think it's very easy to have an overdose of tarot and to begin to turn to tarot for even the little things that you really know that you could work out yourself. I think that second guessing yourself, if you're that kind of person, or you're the kind of person who's having a problem trusting their intuition, yes, tarot can help you to get in touch with your intuition, but it can also become a replacement for it quite quickly if you're not careful. So it's very important to always focus on your own sense of empowerment and on using tarot as a springboard, not on asking tarot, you know, always what the final destination should be and then heading towards it, because, you know, you're asking a tool for an answer when really the tool is just there to help you find your own answer. So I think it's very important to remember that too much tarot can be quite damaging when you're reading for yourself, and that's another thing I would say. So if you feel that you are getting addicted to the deck, do put it down. Take a break from it for a while, and remember, too many readings on the same subject can become very convoluted and complex anyway and will not help you to find an answer, particularly if you're doing multiple readings because you are insisting upon one kind of answer and you kind of want the cards to give you that answer and you don't feel satisfied. If anything like that is happening and you're kind of hitting repeat constantly with your tarot deck, then I would come away from it and I would stay away from it for a while, because, you know, if you're starting to treat it as the oracle instead of the tool for self-empowerment that it's supposed to be, then I do think that there's a line that's been crossed there, which means that tarot has become unhealthy, which would be a great shame because it is sort of a really great exploratory and incredibly healthy tool. When you start reading for other people, if indeed that is part of your plan, then working out your ethics is very important. I will talk to you a little bit about my ethics now. I don't read for the dead, so I don't do mediumship. That's a very strong thing for me. I have nothing against people that use tarot to get in touch with people who've passed on to the next place, or, you know, any spiritual ideas that would lend themselves to tarot being used as a tool for that kind of thing. But for me, it's I don't think it's conducive to healthy bereavement as such in many cases, and I also, obviously, I don't believe that I am a medium, so that would obviously be a big barrier too. And as I spoke about in a former video, it's very important to remember to stand your ground when it comes to your ethics and when it comes to your core principles as a reader. When you decide that certain things would make you feel uncomfortable, or that you wouldn't want to take money for certain things that you genuinely don't feel you're truly proficient at yet, then you need to stand your ground on that, because it can be very easy, particularly when you get into tarot, to help people and to guide people, you know, to exchange emotional feeling with people, which is a really pure and noble reason to pick up a tarot deck and learn how to use it. But when you go into it for those reasons, you always feel like you have to give the best of yourself and you have to kind of give the public what they want. And that's actually not true. If you come away from a reading feeling uncomfortable with what you're doing, or if during a reading you feel uncomfortable with the way the reading's going or the themes that the reading is addressing, then you really are coming away from your ethics. And by using the word ethics, I'm not trying to be aggressive. I'm not trying to say, you know, that these are beliefs that should bring you into some kind of conflict against other tarot readers who believe differently. I'm just talking about your personal core principles, the deal breakers for you, you know, the things that you definitely wouldn't do, your boundaries, your limitations. And also, included in ethics is basically the way you feel that tarot should be used to help and aid people. For example, with me, I'm very strongly in favour of principles of Jungian psychoanalysis, and I also favour transpersonal therapy. I like to think that I use tarot as kind of a tool for counselling and definitely for self empowerment. And my readings don't have a lot of hard and fast answers in them. In fact, during my readings that I write for my querents, there are a lot of focus areas which basically are just filled with questions and journaling exercises and meditation exercises, different things for the querent themselves to think about. There are no kind of answers to the questions. There are actually just more probing questions for the querent to use to actually invite clarity. So, you know, I do think that tarot should be used in that way. That's how I use it. I kind of encourage the querent to explore and encourage the querent to come to their own conclusion. I never feel that you can force an answer onto the querent or indeed judge their life just from the little information that they have given you. Other ethics that I have, I don't like to read about questions to do with health. I'm not a doctor. I do think that you should be asking somebody qualified if you're thinking about, you know, why you can't get pregnant or what that pain is in your stomach. I think it would be very irresponsible of me to go ahead and read on matters of health when I don't feel that I have any jurisdiction there. And I'm not saying that the medical community are, you know, the only people that can talk about health and tap into what health is all about. And of course, I believe in holistic techniques and things like that. But I do think that if somebody is talking about a pain that they have or a worry about something that's recurring or a pregnancy, then it's always best for them to consult somebody that's qualified. I just wouldn't presume to have enough knowledge, and I certainly wouldn't like the idea of somebody languishing away in pain whilst reading my tarot reading about their pain, when they could indeed go to somebody who could give them a scan and kind of confirm for them what their pain is. And I also don't really like doing readings about matters of the law particularly. Of course, if somebody needs support while they're going through a court case of some kind or anything like that, that's fine. But if it's about what kind of thing they should be doing to win their case or legal advice of any kind, that again is for somebody who's qualified in that area. It's not for a tarot reader. I also feel that I need to make it quite obvious to my querents, both face to face and online querents, that I do not consider myself to be psychic in terms of being able to lift the veil between now and the future and actually determine what the future will bring. I'm not the kind of tarot reader that will tell you when you'll become pregnant or who you're going to marry, because I don't believe the future is set in stone. I don't believe it's being pre-written and predetermined. I believe that we are writing the future in the present moment, and I believe that everything we do kind of affects the future. And I totally accept I could be wrong about that, but that's the way I see it. So I wouldn't like to masquerade as somebody who is able to tell you when you're going to fall pregnant or when you're going to move house or anything like that. And that's part of the reason that I stopped giving out so many free readings, because it was quite difficult through the medium of Facebook to actually communicate to people that I'm not a psychic, as in a clairvoyant or somebody who can read the future, because I don't really work like that. That's not how I address tarot as a tool. And a lot of people were kind of using the free reading space to ask questions like, when will I become pregnant? Will I win this court case? There's no yes or no answer. We can focus on things you need to do in order to bring the correct outcome about, techniques that tarot is asking you to explore with regard to feeling better and more empowered about the choices you're making and the way things are going. That I feel is healthy. That's nutritious and delicious, you know, not just saying, yes, you're going to meet him and he's going to break your heart and then you're going to meet him. Because one, I don't believe I can do that. And two, if I believed I could do that, I think I would lose a lot of my love for life, because I like the idea that I'm writing the future myself and my querents are too. So I suppose, you know, I favour that idea, which is another reason that's part of my ethical standpoint. And I always think that if a querent kind of misunderstood what my reading style was and they came to me asking me very specific questions about the future, I would of course write back to them and say, I can give you a refund if you kind of were, you know, if you failed to read my profile and you failed to grasp what kind of reader I was. I can of course give you a refund if you were expecting somebody who was able to answer these kinds of questions. This is the kind of reading that I do. This is the kind of thing we're going to go into and the techniques we will use. If you want me to write you a reading along those lines, then of course I will do, but you know, the refund will be all good as well if that's what you kind of want to do. Um, so I think it's part of defining your style as well as a big part of getting a strong ethical core. I've really defined my style as a reader over the years, and I like to publicise that style quite well before somebody comes to me for a reading. If somebody comes to me for a face-to-face reading, I'll explain exactly what the reading is going to be like. I explain that it's long and it's intense, and sometimes can get quite emotional. But I also explain that it's explorative and it comes from a counselling perspective. It's encouraging, but it's also challenging. There will be focus areas and kind of homework after the fact. And of course, if you go onto my Etsy shop, everything is explained in my profile to that degree. So I do like to be very transparent, because I think I'm a very particular kind of reader, and I do feel that I can only help particular kinds of queerants who need that particular kind of help, and other people may kind of read my profile outline and think she's not for me. So I like to put it right out on the table, and I think that's the most important reason to define your reading style and to work out what kind of reader you are. So what I would suggest is, at this point, if you just write down some of the things that you want your querents to get out of a reading from you, and how you want your querents to feel about a reading from you, and what kind of reader you want to be, what kind of things you would like to encourage and invite into a querent's life. How do you want a querent to feel after the reading is completed? You know, how would you like to send them away? Would you like to send them away thoughtful and reflective and contemplative? Would you like to send them away feeling refreshed and invigorated and ready to go for it? Would you like to send them away feeling comforted and guided, and as though they've kind of come to see a bit of a mother figure or father figure? That's the kind of thing that I think you can focus on now, you know, the kind of reader that you really want to be. And also remembering certain kinds of clients that you may come across and the way that they should be treated. I think it's very important to be able to spot, and over time you will be able to spot, querents who may be using tarot for the wrong reasons, or who may require more help than tarot really has to offer. I wrote on the blog a little while ago about the concept of complicated grief, when somebody who's bereaved comes to you for a tarot reading, but it's evident that their bereavement is not actually the natural run of things. It's actually gone too far. It may have spiraled into psychosis or self-loathing or blaming themselves, that kind of thing. This is just a very small part of a much more holistic overview of many different kinds of client that might come across your path over time, who are not suitable for a tarot reading, or who may need additional direction to other professionals after a tarot reading. So I think that's important. I've recently read for a few people who are long-term carers, who have different situations going on in their lives that invite a certain kind of pressure and intensity. And I've read for people that are ill. I've read for people that are going through very traumatic situations, who are finally dragging out kind of like the abuse from their past and things like this. And of course, if at any point I felt that tarot had done the work it had to do, but that there was definitely more that needed to be done, I would say so. And, you know, for me, a tarot reading is not just about reading the messages that have come up in the chosen or the selected cards. It's also about being very honest about what else I feel may be necessary, and gently kind of inviting a querent to explore that for themselves, to decide if perhaps they need to ask for help from professionals or from loved ones, to decide if they really are being as open about their problems as they possibly can be. Basically, to decide if they really do, if they really can drop anchor at a tarot reading, or if in fact they do need to go to other kinds of professional, or to open up to people in their lives, or whatever it is. You know, and that's part of what the focus areas in my readings are about as well. That potential for future discovery and future exercises that can be done in the longer term, so that tarot does its work to nurture, not just, you know, to give the immediate thrill of getting a 2,000 word tarot reading. It's all about the focus areas. It's all about homework, so that we can carry on using the messages of tarot into the longer term. So if you do come across any querents that you feel may be emotionally unstable, maybe in danger of self-neglect, maybe giving out signs that they are desperately lonely to the point where they are not sure whether or not they are comfortable with being alive, that kind of thing, then don't feel that you need to stop at just giving them a tarot reading, and don't feel that you do need to go ahead and give them a tarot reading if you feel it's not your place to do so. You know, being a tarot reader, at certain points, if you are inviting people to actually, you know, purchase a reading from you or engage with you as a reader, It does require sometimes some assertiveness and some ability to be bold and to be honest in a gentle way, obviously, in a nurturing way, but sometimes you're just not the appropriate person to be the helper, and you may need to nudge somebody in another direction or indeed give additional help or advice after the reading has finished. Um, Another thing I wanted to discuss about is clients who are addicted. Earlier in this video, I talked about what to do if you're picking up the deck too much and kind of like um, pressing that repeat button and trying to get the message that you want out of tarot, or just maybe becoming addicted to asking tarot about everything in your life, you know, wanting an answer for every question instead of being empowered to answer that question yourself. There are querents who are like this as well, and sometimes it's necessary to tell them that you feel that a certain amount of time is often required between readings, to let the messages absorb and do their work and that kind of thing. This can depend really on a lot of things. I think that mini readings, or kind of like power food readings, as I kind of think of them, superfood readings, those readings that kind of just kickstart things and get you thinking in a new way. I think they're okay to do more frequently, but I think that the longer readings sometimes, if the same question is being asked over and over again, there's evidently an underlying sense of frustration there, and the querent is not going to ease that frustration by getting yet another reading. You know, the readings are meant to be challenging and they are meant to get you thinking outside the box. If a querent is asking you the same question a week after they asked you the original question, it's evident that they want a particular kind of answer. And again, it's important to be mindful and tactful when thinking about the querent's feelings as you address this. But if it's something that pushes your ethical boundaries, you know, the idea of doing many readings for this one person who clearly has some frustration with the answers they're getting and is kind of trying to get the answer they want, if that interferes with your ethics and you feel this is doing the querent no good and they're just spending money that, you know, they really needn't be spending because tarot isn't giving them what they want, then, you know, go with your gut and communicate that in a way that is sensitive but in a way that is also assertive. You may come across in your time some skeptical clients. I never have, but I've heard certain tarot readers talking about it. People that come to them that are skeptics, and it's very important to treat skeptics with a little bit of a pinch of salt, because a lot of people who don't believe in the good that tarot can do, one, are not aware of what an all-encompassing tool it is and how we so often use it for counselling these days, and how it's becoming quite a popular tool in transpersonal therapy and all these different ways that it's used: brainstorming, corporate events, work coaching, all that kind of thing. It's become such a big tool now with such a broad scope, and a lot of people who don't have a lot of knowledge of tarot will be thinking that it's just still that kind of Romany gypsy, cross my palm with silver and I'll tell you who you're going to marry kind of thing. So a lot of skeptics just don't know enough about the tool, and that's where it's great for you to become readers and to share your knowledge and to share your wisdom, because that helps people to realize that tarot is so much more than, you know, that image that's been kind of pressed upon it by the 18th century esoteric community and things. And that's the thing that I like about being a tarot reader and being so openly passionate about tarot, is that I've managed to kind of blow a couple of people's brains really with exactly how much of a tool tarot is and exactly how relevant it can be to their lives, and how it's not just about that Romany gypsy facade kind of thing. So, you know, don't tar all skeptics with the same brush. Some of them just are kind of, you know, harmlessly ignorant about the tool because they haven't read a lot about it. And you can be that person that kind of drags them into the contemporary tarot world and shows them exactly what tarot has to give, and give them a really great reading, which will change their mind anyway, regardless. Other skeptics that come across your path may make you feel uncomfortable because they're not the kind of skeptics that are just kind of like accidentally ignorant. They are the kind of skeptics that are trying to be malicious or trying to be hurtful or trying to be obstinate or purposefully recalcitrant as they're getting the reading from you. And if you get that kind of vibe, you do not have to do the reading for them at all. You can step away from a reading anytime, you can give a refund, you can explain your reasons. And that's why I think that being a tarot reader for others kind of requires to be a bit of a strong person sometimes, because when things like that happen to you, and you know, things like that do happen to people, it can be quite hurtful, and it can also be quite an awkward situation for people who are quite introverted or polite or reserved to actually say, you know, look, this is a tool that I'm trying to use honestly and in a communicative way, and if you're not down with that, then that's fine, but the reading can't really continue in this vein. I'm not feeling that you're open to the messages that are coming up. So if you can imagine kind of like how assertive you have to be to say that kind of thing, then you can imagine how brave sometimes in some situations you need to be a tarot reader. Dissatisfied clients, you can't please everyone. And I have spoken in a former video about one client whose feathers I did ruffle a little bit by posing some challenging questions to her about kind of the nature of her romantic history and things like this. I mean, that sounds really like I was really nasty to her. But no, in the video I basically just explained that she was wanting to find love, but she was kind of very introverted and a bit of a home bird. And I was kind of asking her, you know, what she could do actively to bring new connections into the equation and to make herself feel better about her potential as a partner and also as a friend, and so on. And she kind of found this very presumptuous and rude, because she said she was just a little bit long in the tooth to be given that kind of advice, and I could completely understand that, but it was something that I felt made for a bit of a dissatisfied customer. If you've been completely honest about the kind of tarot reader you are, the kind of readings that you do, and somebody is dissatisfied with something that you've given to them, which is the whole animal, which is exactly what you said you were going to do for them, then you know you have to take it on the chin. You have to, on the one hand, take it as a lesson. Don't just dismiss it out of hand. Read it. If there's anything constructive in it at all, take it on board. You know, because it gives you a greater understanding of the fact that every single querent is a different person with a different background, with a different expectation, and they may have had very different tarot readings in the past. And you know, it's not always wise to deny bad feedback or to put it in a box and say, oh, well, it's all your fault anyway because you weren't open to the kind of reading I was giving you. Sometimes negative feedback, when it comes with a certain amount of reasoning as to why it's negative, can really help us to grow as a reader. And that piece of criticism that I received did help me grow, help me to be more tactful, I think. But I also think that sometimes you need to accept that a querent just wants a certain thing, and if you don't give that certain thing, then you will come under fire. So that's kind of dangerous as well. But I think with the best will in the world, if you are honest and open about the skills you have, the kind of reading you do, what they can expect from a reading, what you want them to walk away from with a reading, then you've been as open and honest as you can about reflecting what kind of thing you want to bring to the table for them. And if after that they are dissatisfied, then it's unfortunate, but it's life. And it's all experience anyway. Charging is something I just want to go into briefly because I've actually made a video about charging for spiritual services anyway, so it's not something that I want to rake up here and go over again and again. But I just want to say briefly with regard to charging, watch my charging for spiritual services video. Think about whether or not you're the kind of person who kind of believes that a lot of this stuff comes from spirit and it's unethical to charge and that kind of thing, or whether you genuinely believe that the skills that you've put into learning this tool and perfecting this tool are worth some money. And also, of course, indeed, people want to do something for a living that they enjoy, that they're passionate about, and many people with spiritual leanings, which most people watching this video anyway will be, love the idea of encouraging people, guiding people, giving out some of their compassion, their empathy to people as well. So who wouldn't want to make a cross doing that if they could? You know, it's very fulfilling. It's very fulfilling for you, and it's lovely for other people to have that from you if you're any good at it. So, you know, I just think thinking about charging, and when you are thinking about charging, putting a decent price on it. Don't undersell yourself, don't undervalue your work, and charge appropriately for the time that it takes, but also don't kind of charge what you feel it's worth, genuinely and honestly, and imagine that you've bought it and imagine what you would pay for it, kind of thing. So it can be difficult to find even ground when you're deciding whether or not to charge, whether or not to embark on it as a job of some kind, part-time or whatever. And remember mates rates as well. Be careful with that, because a lot of people in your life, when you become proficient at tarot, will be well up for getting freebies. And I give free readings to my friends and my family, but just remember that sometimes people can start to take advantage. I think I talked about this woman in a former video, but there was one woman or two women who started to become quite addicted to tarot, which I kind of had to address with them, but also kind of felt that because I was round at their house a lot and stuff like that, that they could just ask for a tarot reading whenever they wanted, on any situation they wanted. And my tarot readings are lengthy. There's a lot to get through. I actively engage with every card. I aspect every card with every other card. I pick up on key themes. We do focus areas. We may write some notes if they feel there's things they need to address later, and I'll answer any questions they have. We get into a dialogue quite often when I'm doing face-to-face readings, because there's so much scope for them to reply and to say, this card really taps into something that happened yesterday, and then they'll tell me the story, and then I'll discuss that, and I'll say, well, it's strange because that taps in with the energy of this card, and if you look at the way these cards fit together, there's a very strong theme of dot dot dot. So it can be very much a case of it being very long and drawn out, and really, really sucking my energy. And although I love doing it, you have to be very assertive about the time that you're spending, particularly the time that you're spending for free. And I'm just putting that out there to you honestly, in case anyone is thinking of kind of embarking on taking tarot around with them and offering it to people. It's so wonderful and it feels so great, and I totally would never say that you should be like charging for everything you do, but just be very, very careful, because obligation tends to creep up on you after a time, and sometimes it's difficult to say no after you've kind of started doing something. It's very difficult to back off, and I think that's true with any skill. If you're a carpenter and your friends and family know they can just call you round to fit a door or sort out something, my mate's a makeup artist and it's all about help me do this, do me up for this, but her makeup costs a lot of money. She bought her makeup set, her brushes, and all of the stuff that she needs. And of course, after a while, freebies become a little bit of a burden, because it's almost like people aren't thinking about the resources, her time, her energy, the money she spends on the makeup. This stuff has to come from somewhere. It can't be free all the time. So be careful that you set a boundary, particularly if you have a lot of other obligations in your life, kind of thing, because tarot is like really exciting for so many people and so nurturing for so many people that they kind of maybe will forget themselves and think that you're like this magnanimous tarot reader that can just come round whenever and read for their cards whenever. So just be careful that you don't open the door so much that you can never shut it again. Sort of remember that you are entitled to be assertive, if you see what I'm saying. So this is all I wanted to say for now. Just keep growing, keep doing it, and I will be back with the 10th lesson, which will basically just be some resources that you can use. I'm not really sure. It's going to be a bit of a mishmash of things, just different places I can direct you to, a few books I'd like to recommend. Somebody's requested a review on Tarot 101. I'm going to put that in the next lesson and talk about why it's so great, and there are a few other tarot books that I think are so great. Tarot websites, other tarot videos on YouTube that I'd love to link you guys to, so you can hear some other opinions and get some other meat off the bone with other people who are very great at tarot and talk about it in such a passionate way. So yeah, it's basically just going to be springboards that you can go on from here and enjoy tarot on new levels, and stop hearing me rambling on about it and go and listen to some other people ramble on about it, basically. Thank you for your time tonight, today, whenever, and blessed be. And I've just really enjoyed this course. Thank you so much for sticking with me through it.